And today we are told that Thabo Mbeki is the smartest president. He's a spectacular failure. Thabo Mbeki failed on all economic policies. All his policies had to be revised. BEE failed, it became triple BE. GIA became Asgisa, it became Jimsa. African Renaissance became African nonsense. National Creditors Act was used to shield the banks from loaning people monies to start up businesses. We are told about recession in America that we did not create because American banks, they gave people money to buy beggars. All of a sudden we are affected. There are lots of emerging entrepreneurs who did not get money, And NEPAT, which was supposed to be partnership with the West, East, we ended up having a begging bowl. Everything Mbeki failed. The gap between the rich and the poor widened. And with all his monies, he still looks dirty. He still looks cheap. He still looks like a plumber. He still looks like a painter because of the evil nature of these people. They are evil. These guys, I hate them. And yet, he did not respond to the 1820 British settlers who are landing in Natal. We are told about this great Zulu King. He said nothing about the Dutch East India Company. The Afrikaners landed in 1652, long before he was born. He knew about them. What is Shaga's response? We're supposed to be having a public protector, but we are having a president protector. From there, we were oppressed by China. They even tell us not to invite the Dalai Lama here. They tell us a public policy. We are being exploited by China. I had this fool called Julius Malema saying that if we don't use the dollar, we'll use the Chinese currency. Why? And what is it that the Chinese are buying from us? They're only buying politicians. In Mandela, it was 2 million there. 10 billion, Brits Zimbabwe can't account 5 billion here. In billions, how foolish can you be for you as an auditor not to trace a billion? Do people know how much is a billion? A billion, it could take you 2 generations to build a billion unless you inherit. It's only one Mark Shuttleworth, one Mark Zuckerberg. They did not anticipate everyone coming from Zimbabwe. 4:10. By 5 o'clock, you've got hospital beds at Nuclear in Rahima Musa. You're lying there. South Africans cannot occupy a labor bed because you are everyone. Zimbabwe's constitution says a citizen. Our courts, they interpret this thing broadly and say everyone has got the right to housing. You follow all those, you must pay your taxes. Why are South Africans paying taxes? We shouldn't be paying even about income taxes. I mean, right now, I earn 20 rands. It's already taxed. I buy electricity, it's taxed. I'm paying you from the money that was taxed. You're also going to be taxed. Why are you taxed? Awe, Sanwanani Makaya. Ike, one more time, live with Ike Khumalo. And today we're back to the normal studios. I don't like the studio, but my team prefer the studio. I prefer the other studio because I don't believe in flashy things, books. We started to see during COVID, people shooting, using books, as props, library. I'm not that type of a person. And I don't believe greatness should shout like these people who goes to the shipping and then they flash, phones and car keys to women. I'm not that type of a person. I could be, anyway, I believe in content. That's why even my grammar, it doesn't matter that much. As long as you can hear me, I try, to speak, in a grammatically correct way. And sometimes now, when I'm watching these videos, I say, there I made a grammatical error. I use, you see, like now I'm saying error instead of saying, what's this? There's era and error. Most people confuse the two. Sometimes I find I've used a singular word and then the verb doesn't have an S, so I've used the plural. I'm worried about those things, the prepositions. My major enemy is prepositions, because we don't know whether to use with, at, on. Even white people, they struggle with those. I normally say that you could be on a public transport, but in a private car. Sometimes English don't make sense. That's why I prefer Afrikaans. Afrikaans is a straightforward. Yeah, so I'm not that person. The props, I prefer to wear one outfit all the time. If it was according to me, I would wear black all the time, and have my signature look. So yeah, that's where we are today, in the the same old. Yeah, so there's lots of things to cover. A lot has been happening. Also in the country with our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, is in the firing line. MK taking him to court. Challenging appointments zakhe, and Mkhunu ngapha, Minister of Police. There's so many things going on, and I must say, I'm really impressed, even though I didn't watch the whole thing because it was long, man, 6 hours. Got Dali Mpofu, challenging Cyril Ramaphosa at the Constitutional Court. I think Dali Mpofu, he was well articulated. I know he gets a lot of criticism, and there was a case, I think the rescission as well. He was outstanding. I thought that he was going to win. And sometimes the decisions that are taken by these courts are crazy because they deny them direct access. But Zondo was granted direct access to the Constitutional Court. It seems as if, from where I'm sitting, Cyril Ramaphosa cannot lose. Even during COVID, I was wondering, I knew when I see you, Judge Mlambo, Cyril is going to win. When people were challenging the decisions, the government, lockdowns, they were losing all the time. Even this thing, of COVID lockdowns didn't make sense. The vaccinations, lockdowns, it didn't make sense. But Cyril was winning all the time. And I must warn the judiciary, because it seems as if the judiciary is becoming political or is being politicized all the time or every day. When it comes to such matters, you look now, we're supposed to be having the public protector, but we are having a president's protector. I applied for the office by a public protector. They never called me. And I realized, in my interviews, they brought in people, who are horribly, bad, except for two. There was one professor and one Indian guy, one black professor. And most of these people, they work for the government. And they choose within the ANC comrades. And Mina was one of the outsiders. Most of us who applied were never called. We were just shortlisted there. And then from there, it was the end. Because they knew which when they bring a person like me, I was going to take them head on. You cannot buy me. I continuously say that. You cannot buy me. There are some people you cannot buy. There are some people who don't care much for money. They just want to exist, or survive, the now. So I was going to take on these governments, Minister of Police, Minister of Home Affairs, Health Minister. You can see the Health Department, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing at the hospital. What stops them from, let's say they treat illegal foreigners, but after the treatment, they must report them, hand them over to the police, call Home Affairs, let these people be detained. After detained, taken to Lindela jail and deported, or before they are deported, rather, give them lengthy sentences so that they can tell others within in South Africa, if you cross the border illegally, 2 years is waiting for you, and you repeat again, it's 5 years, because that's what we need. Companies, they should be taken, Department of Public Works. I mean, we see people damaging our infrastructure. What are they doing? Robots not working. I mean, some of the potholes, they are square. You can see it's man-made. What are they doing about that? Road infrastructure. They're not doing anything about that. So as a public protector, you should be, taking these people head on. Department of Defense. What are they doing to protect our borders? It's a guilt right there. Trade and industry. There are many people who are bringing, fake products from China where we are not benefiting. And sometimes I wonder when these politicians, they'll be telling you about BRICS. What is our benefit in BRICS? I said that long ago when they said, let Donald Trump go. I mean, there are more than 600 companies here, Western companies investing here. We grew up, Tina, knowing good there are companies from Britain, companies from, United States. Not China. At that time, I think we were dealing with Taiwan. They were selling us stuff. They were taking raw material. 1998, Mandela signed new trades in China. From there, we were oppressed by China. They even tell us not to invite the Dalai Lama here. They tell us public policy. We are being exploited by China. I had this fool called Julius Malema saying that if we don't use the dollar, we'll use the Chinese currency. Why? Why can't we use our own African currency and trade amongst ourselves? If we're in BRICS, contributing that currency and be equal shareholders. Today, China is selling us cars. They are killing, the motor industry. I mean, we trade now with Germany. Even though I'm not saying Germany, they're treating us fairly. American companies, they're treating us fairly because we assemble more than, a building from the beginning. But China, they bring a finished product. They sell to us. They take our raw material, coal, for almost nothing. And they bribe few politicians to become rich. Today, South Africans, they are like scavengers. Jobs gone. Youth unemployment is very high. So those things, they disturb me a bit when people saying that, abahambe, so that you can be begging. China can do so much, ne Russia. They're in the Security Council, permanent members, veto. They have veto powers. They didn't save Gaddafi. Because Gaddafi was trying to liberate us in a way, coming with an African bank so that you can rely on our own, have our own currency. They said, no, this guy must go. And they use our excuse to say, you South Africa, Nigeria and Gabon voted against Gaddafi. This is where I blame Jacob Zuma, because Jacob Zuma was the president. Most people, sometimes, they surprise me because they've got the amnesia. Jacob Zuma was there during Marikana, life esidimeni. He voted against Gaddafi, 1973 resolution. Gaddafi's billions are missing. And China said, if you South Africa are voting against Gaddafi, what can you say? So that's Jacob Zuma for you. Poor decision making. The better don't go to his personal life, because even the bros coach, he doesn't understand. So this is where we find ourselves, and hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question in regards to the BRICS, right? Because we were hit with a 30% tariff by the US the other day. I think it started on the 1st of August.
Yes.
And so now, because Trump has been, he kind of, I don't want to use the word threatened, but I think he kind of is, by BRICS, right? So obviously he tried going against all the other countries. And I think he didn't succeed in that. Do you think that's why he's going so hard for South Africa? Or do you think that he has other motives, or there's other reasons maybe he might be going against South Africa like this?
If I was Trump, looking after my own interest and my people, I was going to go harder for South Africa, because remember, South Africa is the gateway to Africa. If China's got a grasp and a hold to South Africa, they own the continent. China needs raw material. And majority of the things that they need, they're here. And it's a battle for resources. America also wants those resources. And they've been dealing in South Africa, having agreements in South Africa. And then South Africa, it keeps on, showing them the middle finger, going to China. Obviously, I will take that decision, and I applaud him, for standing for his own people. I wish we had many African Trumps, people who will, take a decision, a stand, and say, I stand with my people and for my people. We don't have those leaders. And South Africans, man, what is their counter? They don't have a counter. I remember saying, 2021, these people who are saying, take the land, let the West go, they have no counter. If the West, they can sanction us like Zimbabwe, what's the alternative? This is where Afrikaners were smart. As they said, with the Apure Maka plan. Afrikaners, they had a way of bypassing sanctions, and they built up industries, bososol, alternative industries, for things that they could not get outside. But here in South Africa, we are dependent on these countries outside. We can't even manufacture a toothpick, a pen of a pen. Everything now comes from China. And what is it that the Chinese are buying from us? They're only buying politicians, a few. Maybe Abu Mashatile, Abu Ramaphosa, a few, Abu Jacob Zuma. The rest of us, we are suffering. So Donald Trump is putting his people first, which is good. Nati, we should have a leverage and say, okay, when he's doing this, what is it that you can use to trade now? What is it that you can use against him? No, we're not, because we are prostitutes. We're moving from Western imperialism or unfair trade to going to China, which is worse. The Chinese are worse. They employ their own people. They don't invest in your country. They are takers. We've seen what is happening in other African countries. Abu Zimbabwe were complaining about everything is now owned by China, Zambia. So do you want to be like that? South Africa was the top notch country in Africa. We were ahead of China in the 60s. We were at par with Australia in the 80s. We were better off than France. We were better off in the 70s than many European countries, because many of them, they were devastated by war. By war. Yeah, you were saying?
I'm saying that, do you think that Trump is doing this to South Africa, since South Africa obviously is the weakest link compared to the other countries in the BRICS family now? So do you think that it'll ever get to a point where now they kick South Africa out, or BRICS falls, or any of that? What do you think he's doing when he's targeting South Africa like that?
I don't have much faith in BRICS. Maybe BRICS has a better strategy. But I remember when Trump asked members of BRICS, Guti, are you coming with your own currency? The very same mighty Vladimir Putin said, no, we are not moving away from the dollar. Maybe he was hiding his intentions. It will be something if he was doing that. But he said, no, we are not moving away from the dollar. It's just that you are militarizing the dollar against us. We want to use the dollar. About China, they're not coming outright in our support. They will never support us. They are looking, after their own interests. Of course, if you are Donald Trump, Donald Trump is smart. People don't give him credit. And he's got advisors. He didn't become a billionaire by fluke. You will look at the weakest link if you want to hit BRICS. I believe South Africa has more resources in all these BRICS countries and strategic mineral resources. So I'll go after South Africa. And I know which if I've gone for South Africa, I've crippled Africa. BRICS needs Africa. Russia might have oil, might have whatever. There are certain things that they don't have that Africa has. So if you hit South Africa, you've hit the whole continent. So Trump will go for South Africa. And again, in face value as a politician, what do you say to your people when they ask you and say, you know what, you've given South Africa loans, you've given them monies, NGOs, and in the end, they're siding with our enemies when it comes to Israel. What the hell are we doing in the Middle East? The Middle East, I understand the similarities between us and Palestine, but I support no one. Between Palestine and Israel, I support no one. I support myself. And we had no business to take Israel to the International Criminal Court, or International Criminal Court of Justice. Why are other countries not doing that themselves? Why Iran not doing that themselves? They gave ANC money because ANC was almost bankrupt. And then we are suffering because of the ANC.
Do you not believe, Ike, Ugutsi, ANC felt the plight of Palestinians and were empathetic towards them, since South Africans have gone through apartheid, especially the ANC?
The ANC, my man, they have no moral background. They have no moral fiber. They have no standing, to be talking immorality. Because there are so many things that are happening. China is oppressing Tibet. Where is that morality? The Dalai Lama cannot move. He's banned all over. Thabo Mbeki kicked him out. I don't know how many times has the Dalai Lama tried to apply here. We cannot even deal in Taiwan. We cut relations in Taiwan because of China. Where is that morality? The Chinese, There's no human rights in China. Where is that morality? Russia, there's no morality there. You know, Vladimir Putin, he's been sitting there as a life president. He's a god. When you're talking democracy, like in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, where people believe that Kim Jong-un is a god. You must cry unanimously, all of you. You must laugh when he comes. I cannot live in a country like that. So the ANC, they have no morality. Their morality, it's selective. There's so many countries, you know, pushing unjust laws, and they're quiet. They're quiet. You can go here, China Mall. Look at how black people are treated. All these Mozambicans. Chinese are doing as they please. Where is that morality? You cannot tell China anything. You cannot tell Russia anything. You are being controlled. So for me, in the ANC, yeah, I mean, you look at these guys, when they were in exile, they were raping their own female comrades. They were raping men. They brought drugs in South Africa. We did not know drugs. When they came in, many of them, they were accused of drugs. I hear people saying Paul Mashatile has got houses, 28 million here he's got, double mint, you know, because of the 3 billion that is missing in Alexander. Tokyo had a house worth more than 12 million before he could earn his first salary as a premier. That's why people kept on saying he's a drug dealer. He came up with this fairy tale story. So the drug dealer want to kill me. The drug dealer, I'm looking for drug dealer. So that, you know, he can divert. But people, they were saying, you are the drug dealer. Many of them, when they came here, they were accused of bringing drugs here. They were accused. There were rumors. No, these ANC guys, you know, they funded the so-called struggle. I say the so-called struggle using drug money. The soccer bosses, many of them, they were used to bring drugs here, you know.
Why is
Yes.
it so-called?
The so-called struggle.
Why do you call it so-called?
I call it the so-called struggle because the ANC and maybe the PAC to a degree, they never adopted the armed struggle with intentions of overthrowing the government of the day. They will tell you what you wanted to put pressure. No, these are hustlers. They were hustling. Thabo Mbeki. Some of them, they left here because they were common criminals. They've killed people. They went to exile. They joined the struggle, the so-called struggle. These are people who were looting donor money. They were fooling donors, pretending to be fighting a war. The people who came to join them later, about 76, they were sacrificed. They sent people like Solomon Mahlangu to say, Solomon Mahlangu, go and distribute pamphlets. Probably they even alerted the police which is coming. Because these guys, how they thrive. We were crying in the townships, facing Abo Inkatha, facing the state of emergency by P.W. Botha, saying, we need arms. How many songs have we sang? Oliver Tambo, nginiki ibhazuko, yabona manje ngisemncane, ngakhala ngathi ngifuna ibhazuko. It never came. These guys, they would rather take up arms, put them somewhere in a bush, and call the police and say, there are arms there. They bring newspaper reporters, and then that story makes up huge international headlines, and then they take the paper clips, they go to United Nations, they go to USA and say, look, we are struggling, you know, there's been arms that, you know, were, you know, aimed at, you know, people in Soweto, Tutuza, Kwamashu, but those arms are not meant for us. That's why they will sacrifice their own. And then they take a person like Solomon Mahlangu, take Hector Peterson and say, you see, this is our struggle. Give us more money. Hence, they were sitting, I repeatedly say, with white prostitutes in London. Why would we be fighting British Empire that has colonized us and even colonized the Afrikaners? Why would Oliver Tambo be in London? Imagine Che Guevara. He's fighting Batista. He's fighting the American imperialism. He set up an office in Washington. And he says he's in exile. We are in exile come on, you're in exile in Mexico, not only in what's this country? In California, in Hollywood. That's what they were doing.
So tell us, like, do you reckon that the ANC and the apartheid government of the day were somehow in cahoots?
We're collaborating. Here in South Africa, in the 80s, many people were killed for being collaborators. The first one, I think, was Maki Ntsakano or Tutuza, was killed. Mistakenly so, because as youth, you're going to make mistakes in a struggle. You start suspecting each other because the enemy now, they also dribbling you. They can take me today and then, bang deliver somewhere. But these guys, they were already collaborating. They were meeting. The National Party got Dakar. And the National Party said it. When we met these guys for the first time, ngaboma 70s, ngaboma 80s, we saw that these guys, they've got a thirst for money. The clothes that they were wearing. And then they started giving them money. They use soccer bosses. They use open ham, but give these guys money. They gave them money. They gave them money. And they were collaborating. Mandela was already negotiating in jail. Was isolated. A prisoner negotiating. What are you negotiating as a prisoner? He was already talking to the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Police. He was already talking to P.W. Botha. That's why in 1984 to 85, Botha said he's going to release Mandela. It was Winnie Mandela who stood up. That's why to this day, you can never make me hate Winnie Mandela. Winnie Mandela saved us. She might have her own flaws. But for me now, Winnie Mandela was antagonized by the ANC, was targeted by the ANC because she stood with us. She's the one who said, Mandela, you're not going out. Why are they prioritizing you? You are not arrested alone. They told Mandela that he must go live in Transkei with Matanzima, his cousin. He accepted. That he must go out, leave others behind. Winnie Mandela wrote that speech that said, my freedom and my people cannot be separated. That was Winnie Mandela. That speech was read by Uzinzi. That's why I love Winnie Mandela. Bamfrema ngabo Stompy. But he killed Stompy. The guy who said Winnie killed Stompy, he confessed in jail. He had nothing to lose. He was sentenced to death. I think Jerry Richardson. He said, no, I was told to make up stories. Ngabo Mandela United. The reason that I planted Winnie, that story was brought to me, I must sell it. He said, I was the spy. Stompy was the spy. We discovered each other. I had to kill him first. And then they planned Winnie Mandela. I'm not saying she's perfect. I knew every funeral that we are attending, 1984-85, when you go to the graveyard, 5 of us are going to be lying down dead, shot by soldiers. But when Winnie Mandela was there, Winnie Mandela will intervene. Come and say, let me finish my sentence. Winnie Mandela will come and say, these are my children. There are videos of her. I'm not telling lies. She will come. I would be happy when I saw Winnie Mandela attending our funerals because I knew that no one is dying today. Winnie Mandela will come. The police said, these are my children. I was part of those kids. And then she'll come and say, these are my kids. You're not interfering. You're not killing these kids. So I started with my van. And then today, the youth, they've got the audacity to even say, Winnie Mandela and Dali Mpofu, you have no business as a kid to be talking adults' business. I remember Winnie Mandela. Who's this guy? Dali Mpofu. He asked Winnie Mandela a question. You'll come up. He asked, I want to finish this thought before I forget. Dali Mpofu asked Mandela, who's in your life now? Mandela said, I don't discuss my relationship with kids. I can talk to your father. So today, because of social media, people can come, and accuse Winnie Mandela of adultery. You have no business as a child to accuse a person as senior as Winnie Mandela. It's like saying, Umama Miajola. What the hell is that? What the hell is
Ike, I've noticed that the people or celebrities or politicians that you favor, you will spare no expense to favor them, even when they're wrong. There are many imperfections that can be said about many politicians that you continue to fight for. There's a lot of rumors that Winnie Mandela was the head of a hit squad, which was pretending to be a soccer team, but in fact it was her hit squad. There are many other rumors of not only the scandalous Dali Mpofu scandal, but many accounts have came forward of men that say they were sexually abused by Winnie Mandela at the time they were employed by her. Are you saying that these accusations are false, or are you saying that the victims are lying?
Yeah, it hurts me to hear you speaking like that. I don't care whether the accusations are false or not. Hey, Winnie Mandela was a human being, and I'm not saying she did all of those things. These are accusations, and many of them have never been tested in court. And many of them, the apartheid agency and agents, they've come out to confess ukuthi we investigated Winnie Mandela, we were listening to our phone calls, we found nothing. Thabo Mbeki commissioned Sidney Mufumadi, the then Minister of Police, to find that Winnie Mandela, because Winnie Mandela was threatening the presidency because people wanted Winnie Mandela to be the president. At some point, Thabo Mbeki suppressed her, and they're saying they found nothing, and they had to create and cook up stories. And here's the thing. People, they're using yesterday's standards to judge, not even yesterday's standard. They're using the modern day standard, if I were to put it correctly, to judge yesterday. You can't do that. There are certain things that they were not illegal then. You cannot use the laws in a democratic system to judge what happened there. Back in the days, I did not sign a register when I joined COSAS in the 80s. There were no structures. We joined. We did what we could. It's like in an armed struggle. There are no rules. In a war, there is a thin line between civilization and barbarism. And now, when we are settled, then you start to look back and say, yeah, but this guy, yeah, he was unfair. We use what, you could use at that time. Many people were suspected of being spies because we didn't have, the equipment that we have. We didn't have technology. But I saw you. Time and again, you're with the police. We'll ask you, what are you doing with the police? Of course, there'll be a mini court. What are you doing with the police? If your answers are not satisfactory, we conclude that you were a spy. The prevailing circumstances determined, the outcome. So you cannot come after the fact and say, yeah, this woman was terrible. It's so easy to be smart after the fact in hindsight.
I noticed that you also stated that Winnie Mandela was instrumental in keeping Mandela imprisoned. A lot of people have asked, why would Nelson Mandela divorce Winnie Mandela? And people say that the new Mandela that came out was a clone. The real Mandela would never divorce Winnie. Yet, today we are finding out that she was instrumental in somehow keeping him imprisoned. Would you really blame a man for divorcing a wife that keeps him in jail? And secondly,
yeah, you must also allow me to answer the question. When you say Winnie Mandela kept Mandela in prison, she did not keep Mandela in prison. She asked for justice. She said, Mandela, you were arrested with other prisoners. Why are they isolating you from your colleagues? Why are you the only one talking to the minister? Why are you the only one talking to the president of the country? You cannot negotiate alone. You are a prisoner. Prisoners don't negotiate, especially with free people. Winnie Mandela was simply asking for accountability. Winnie Mandela was saying, don't take up the offer. Otherwise, the Winnie Mandela intervention, had it not occurred, we would not know Mandela, as you know Mandela today, the savior Mandela. Without Winnie, there is no Mandela. There is no Mandela because even Americans, Reverend Jesse Jackson, they came in here, Louis Farrakhan, Khalid Mahomet, supporting Winnie Mandela because they had a voice, loud, and she gave us courage where everybody else was afraid. You could not mention the name Mandela and live to tell the tale. You'll be arrested because of Communist Act or 1950 Communist Act. You'll be arrested. You mention Mandela. You were found with a book saying Africa my beginning, Africa my ending. Winnie Mandela was courageous. She came in here, from Bradford to Soweto, defending us. I will stand in defense of Winnie Mandela in spite of her flaws. It's like a marriage. There is no marriage without up and down. So Winnie Mandela was there. She never betrayed us. In spite of our mistakes, she was a leader. And all these people, can I conclude? All these people, they turned against Winnie Mandela, Oliver Tambo, and their wives. They turned against Winnie Mandela. They love her now that she's dead. It's for us who are there to defend Winnie Mandela, because these people who are governing us, they are askaris. They made up stories. I've said it repeatedly. I'm saying, if the apartheid government, who had motives, they can come outright and say there was nothing wrong with Winnie Mandela. We had to make up stories. We made up stories against her because we could not find corruption. We could not find that she killed Ustombi. They were told people what to say in the Truth and Commission, Abo Bishop Tutu. So that's why I will defend her. And I expect Nami, if I'm gone tomorrow, people who know me, to defend me. So that's where we find ourselves. Winnie Mandela, yeah, you wanted to say?
I wanted to elaborate on your phrase, which says, don't judge yesterday with today's standards.
Yes.
Yet you are the same person who is judging Mbeki for selling drugs back in the day and selling drugs today.
There's a Chinese saying that says, if you make a mistake and fail to correct it, you've made a second mistake. If a person yesterday was selling drugs and there is no sign of stopping, I will use yesterday, because you are the same person that you were yesterday. You haven't repented. If there are rumors about these guys continuing, I will use that. But if I see change in you, then I will forget your past and pack it. But if you conduct yourself like a thug, even Mkwanas, he mentions them all. There are people who are afraid to come out. And sometimes it baffled me with the South African police. They can be so useless that they need the politicians to tell them, go and arrest this person. If I'm a police officer, whether a general or a lieutenant or a constable, I see someone committing crime, must I wait for an order? I see a person committing crime, I'll arrest that person. But they don't do the same with politicians. Where there is massive evidence, why can't they just go arrest a minister of whatever without the minister of police telling them to do that and hand over to NPA? Why these protocols? That's why our police are used as Zinkabi. That's why our police are used whenever our people are protesting. They are protesting against illegal immigrants. They are protesting for service delivery. They are so quick at shooting them, killing them, like they killed Utatan. They killed them in Marikana. They killed a person in Alexander during COVID. You'll never see them doing the same against Nigerians, immigrants, illegal immigrants who are beating them up daily. We see my videos beating them up daily. Some during COVID, they went to Durban, release a prisoner, Uma cells. We've seen farmers burning their cars with guns. They were asked, they said, no, the situation was dangerous. Should South Africans march with guns now? Maybe South Africans should march with guns, because each time they protest for water, the police will come and shoot them. They never shoot the Ethiopians. They never shoot Somalis. They beat them. The Somalis, they even beat up the taxi guys. What's the other name for Qeber? PE. I call it PE. I refuse to call this thing Qeber. I refuse to call this thing Chrisani Baragwanath. It's Baragwanath because they built nothing. To me, it's still John Smart's airport. People say I'm angry. To me, it's still John Foster. Until they build theirs, it's still Potchefstroom Road. It's still Church Street. They have no sense of history. Imagine one of the longest streets that's in the map, probably in Guinness Book. You cut it into two, you call it whatever. You cut it into 2, 3, 4 streets. You kill history. Potchefstroom was one of the longest roads. They change it and cut it, call it Chrisani, whatever. And you kill history because they want to put themselves. Like Stalin. Stalin was not part of the revolution. He saw people marching and he climbed in the queue. He even photoshopped himself. Stalin. Nabo Lenin. So these guys, they have no sense of history. I hate these guys, to be honest. Like, you can hear even the way I hate the ANC. They adopted an propaganda. They killed their own comrades. Many people were killed in exile during the armed struggle. Many of them were killed by ANC, as opposed to being killed by apartheid government. They've never fought against South African Defence Force. They never fought against South African police then. So once in a while, they'll plant a bomb there. They were killed by their own. People who are asking, commanders, when are you going back to South Africa and fight? That's not part of the plan. The plan is to pretend to be fighting a war so that you get donation money. So that's why I have no business with these guys. If I wanted to be in the ANC at the top, I could have been. I could have bulldozed my way around. These guys, they will not tell me. Many of them, they are accused of, bisexuality. All that. They cannot tell me. I'm an alphabet community. I could bulldoze my way. And still, they used to call me when I was in the trade unions. I have no business to be with these guys. I don't want their tenders. I don't want to be their friends. I don't want to jowl with them. And sometimes I'm even puzzled when people saying Ike is making noise because he's been excluded. Man, I came from the street. My generation, we're fighting for freedom. From there, we go back to what we do best. Many of these guys, they've seen corruption in the homelands. They were pushing corruption. Nabo Sol Kesna, Kuma TBV states. Some they've seen it in exile in these failed states. They brought it here. When did you think that government jobs will be so unsecure? Did you think that everything will go to tender? Thabo Mbeki started that nonsense. And today we are told that Thabo Mbeki is the smartest president. He's a spectacular failure. Thabo Mbeki failed on all economic policies. All his policies had to be revised. BEE failed, it became triple BE. GIA became Asgisa, it became JIMSA. African Renaissance became African nonsense. National Creditors Act was used to shield the banks from loaning people monies to start up businesses. We are told about recession in America that we did not create because American banks, they gave people money to buy beggars. All of a sudden we are affected. There are lots of emerging entrepreneurs who did not get money, And NEPAT, which was supposed to be partnership with the West, East, we ended up having a begging bowl. Everything Mbeki failed. The gap between the rich and the poor widened. All these SOEs, electricity problems, started with Mbeki. Our nurses back in the days, they were paid to be trained. Doctors broke down all institutions. Unisa was number one, not number one distant learning education. At some point, it will be number one in the world or number one in Africa, in the top 5 in the world, Nabo Harvard, Nabo Oxford. Today, they brought in their people, but they're making an African university. They brought in all these people with fake degrees. They brought in Nabo Shetro Kuto. Many of them, they come from Sudan, a country that does not archive stuff in a computer. You write in a piece of paper, here's your master's. Okay, they look at, your qualifications. You're a technician. Okay, we'll say that you're not a technician. You're an engineer. Go to South Africa. They're all over our universities. These professors abusing our kids, pass mark for sex, making African university. Back in the days when the Broederbond were running institutions like Unisa, UJ was raw. VET was run by the Zionists. Even Bush universities like Bongoye, Unibo, Tefluo, they were performing. We knew, okay, from Bush universities, we've got struggle fighters. Now, Unisa, you could register in 30 minutes. You've got your stationery, everything. We are good to go. And when you held a qualification as a Unisa, you were the most sought after all over the world because they knew that you are disciplined. VETs. I remember at some point, the VETs degree was even lower than Unisa. UJ. I don't know why I use UJ. RAU. It is RAU. Rand Afrikaanse Universiteit. That's how I know it. And Mbeki failed. Labor brokers, they started Mbeki. He outsourced everything, tenders, the BEE. BEE is not helping black people. It is a curse because it's used against black people. These comrades, they wanted ownership. It started ngabo Dikgang Moseneke, Nthato Motlana. At least Thato Motlana has got a history of business, built Lesedi Clinic, many things. Abo Mohanyele, started Abo Sogam Brewery. I mean, Dikgang Moseneke was all over. He's one of the pioneers. What have they built? They are plugged into white companies, no new companies. They are plugged in there having shares about Tokyo for what? I mean, Dikgang Moseneke, this is the guy who was very despised in the PAC. He was not liked. I was a PAC by then. He was a traitor. Nabo Penny Alexander, Patricia DeLille. They betrayed people like Mutuping. Mutuping was saying no CODESA, no negotiations. Let us fight on. Let us fight on until we get what we wanted. So yeah, I'm gonna come. Dikgang Moseneke. That's why sometimes I'm talking about academic mafia. People don't believe me. People who used to do BProc, about BUris, they know that there's a course called legal ethics. They mention a case Dikgang, Bram Fisher, no Mandela. They say these guys, Bram Fisher and Mandela, this is where I give Mandela credit. When they wanted to strike them off the roll as legal practitioners because they have opposed apartheid laws. The apartheid government was saying, how can you be a lawyer when you don't agree with the law or the laws of the day? And he said, I have to follow my morality. I cannot support unjust laws. Dikgang Moseneke, when he was admitted as an attorney, if he did that cause, there's a matter yake, Moseneke. He lied. Or maybe he was telling the truth. They asked him, Joe, you were arrested at Robben Island for breaking the laws. What do you say about that? In his affidavit, he says, no, Mina, as a 15-year-old or 14-year-old, I was sent to the shop to buy bread. I saw a guys marching, and then they were chased by the police. I was caught up in that mix and I was arrested. He denied the PAC. And when he came back, he drove the PAC to go to CODESA. To go to CODESA. Yeah, you were saying?
Oh, I was saying that. Can you explore more on why you're saying that BEE is used against black people? Because I think you didn't explore on that.
Look, BEE did not fall from the sky. It was coined by Sanlam, these big multinationals like Oppenheimer. Harry Oppenheimer, 1990, around there. He said, if these ANC guys think that they can come and destroy this economy or take over everything, they are in for a shock. We won't allow that. We need to give them a certain percentage so that they can have a sense of ownership and defend it. Mandela at that time, because ANC was still confused. They didn't know whether they are socialist or capitalist, they are a broad church or what. Mandela was still talking about will nationalize. He went to America saying we're going to nationalize. He scared the investors. And then they said, no, rather than you nationalizing, how about a few blacks being plugged into those companies, and then there'll be a trickling down effect, which is BEE. Thabo Mbeki was leading that because Thabo Mbeki was the president since 1994. Mandela was ceremonial. Mandela said, here's the man to run the country. That's why Mandela, from nowhere, came and said, Gia, it's now the official position of the ANC. Nobody must question that. They moved from RDP, which was still a bit socialist, giving people houses, grants, had that element of socialism. We're moving away after we came back from Genoa. BEE plugged in a few. And these few, once they are there, like Bomam Kize, Bosodi, you can never tell them Bogorol, doing nonsense, dance challenges, creating the slave queen culture. Bokulubusa Zuma, Tutuzana Zuma, Isma Khashule's kids, Cyril Ramaphosa's children. We can never tell them Bogorol because that money is theirs. They can buy soccer clubs, Sabo Sundowns. You can never tell them anything. Now we must depend on their generosity, supposed generosity. And they're even told where to invest, where not to invest. They cannot invest in your company because your company is going to compete with Rupert. They rather give you money if you're talking about NGOs, women who were abused in a shelter, running away from an abusive husband. But if you're coming up with a more fire, they won't sponsor you because they've got beverages. If you say clean energy, they're also competing there. If you come and say, you know what, the hobos, the plight of the hobos in Joburg, they'll give you money there because you're not threatening them. So BE was a counter to nationalization to say, don't nationalize, guys, we'll give you shares. They gave a few. And then when you come in later and you say Anglo-American, hey, let's nationalize, you find comrade talk and say, talk and say, no. It's black owned, comrade. I've got a percentage here. It's got 0.00.1. And that one is not having voting powers. We've seen it in Marikana. Sorry. Cyril Ramaphosa was sent back and forth to tell your people that they need to go back to work, running up and down, because they don't plug in any black person. Why not you? You're black. They look for those who are politically connected, which come in here so that they can use them later. They're protecting the very same multinationals. So that's why PE is not working. Did we struggle for Zanele Mbeki? Zanele Mbeki is probably a billionaire. Did we struggle for Mampela Rampela? No. Did he struggle for Cyril Ramaphosa? Cyril Ramaphosa, that guy is more powerful than Mandela, is more powerful than any president we've ever had since 1910, because he's got the backup of the multinationals. He's got the backup of the Zionist nonsense that are supporting him. Even the ANC, they're afraid of him. It's his second term now. We know that every president in his second term is destabilized. They never finish their terms. Zuma never finished his term as a deputy president, as a president, Thabo Mbeki, not Cyril Ramaphosa. He took them to all-time lows, even voters. Even COVID. We started to see money being lost in billions. During Mandela, it was 2 million there, 10 billion, Brits demand they can't account, 5 billion here. In billions, how foolish can you be for you as an auditor not to trace a billion? Do people know how much is a billion? A billion, it could take you 2 generations to build a billion unless you inherit. It's only one Mark Shuttleworth, one Mark Zuckerberg who can be a billionaire in your lifetime. The rest is inherited. It's a generation open hammer. Come on, this guy just becomes a billionaire. He's got no heart. He's a liar. And with all his monies, he still looks dirty. He still looks cheap. He still looks like a plumber. He still looks like a painter because of the evil nature of these people. They are evil. These guys, I hate them. They are evil. If you made your money killing your own people, you're going to be like Ramaphosa, be like Lamula, like Blatant Zimande. You can see Nemalia Ibagaze. This guy, he said, Cyril Ramaphosa betrayed them when they were arrested. He made a statement. What's Lukota? They implanted communist thoughts, in his head. His father was a police officer, a surgeon. He went. I was arrested during apartheid when I was 13. Police, they will not leave you. I was beaten up. My ear was bleeding. They want 3 things. You must collaborate, join them, ube impimpi, or give them information. The charge that you were arrested for, you must confess. And then they gave you names. They had names and say, do you know Zodwa? You answer, it's yes. Or else you'll be beaten. Do you know Mandela? Yes. Okay, fine. Do you know where he is? No, he's in exile. Okay, fine. You confess your own sin and you're arrested. If you did not confess, you ended up like Stephen Biko. Those who are still alive, who went to Robben Island, it's because they confess. It's either your case, Sakyako, or Bati, who else was with you? They beaten me up. I was 13, the guy I was arrested with was 20. 10, it says Ike. He didn't call me Ike. Keep. But what say ye? What? No, he knows them. Not yes, I know them, but I don't know where they stay. But I know I can take you to Pimville. You can look for them. Because I was also afraid now, they might misconstrue me as a Mpimpi. But we knew it now, when you are arrested, those who are with you, they must run away. And when you come out of jail, you tell them, Joe, I was beaten up. I gave them your name. Run. That's not being a spy. You tell them. But being a spy, no, I'm arrested. There's another guy, Bossman, Gloria Bossman's brother. He was arrested. Ngambuza, ngathi Joe, wena ukhiphe bani? What time mina ngikhiphe umzwakhe Mbuli sibali. We went to Mzwakhe Mbuli's house and I heard him. He was hiding. Kusiling, emuzweshaya iroof. Because you could not stand the torch. Do you think these guys who are arrested, cash in transit, do you think they volunteer money? Do you think that Mabati 5 AK-47s were found, money was found? Do you think they just smile and say, guys, come? They're beaten up. Not everyone can take torture. Stephen Biko could take torture. That's why he's dead. Very few who can do that. That's why I'm not asking much from people, because I know not everyone can be a Stephen Biko or Malcolm X. Those people left us shoes too big to fill. That's why sometimes we partner with pretenders, traitors, because my issue is on the agenda. It's not often that my issue is on the agenda. I will even support a wannabe, hoping that I'll hijack this issue and give it a proper direction. But I was beaten up, and I told those guys, in fact, keep. Direct, but they would beat you up. You confess. I confessed. And they gave me names. I confirmed those names. Good, yeah, I know them. They are comrades now. So that's how we lived. So, but these guys for me now, I don't take them seriously. We are governed by Askaris. They have no heart, That's why, they've imposed themselves government because they can't work anywhere. Recently, people were questioning, what is the job of a deputy minister? You tell me, what is the job of a deputy minister? Because even if they fire a minister, this guy cannot step up, be a minister. Why do they have to look for someone outside? Why do they have to look for another minister to take over another ministry? Gwede Mantashe has got his own ministry. He's assigned, okay, take care as an acting minister of police. What about his minister? What is the role of deputy president, or even deputy president? Even the deputy minister, because deputy ministers, they don't sit in the cabinet. They're not part of the cabinet. They're outside. They're just hype men. They're just eating money. They've got bodyguards. They've got blue lights. For what? They're chowing tenders, So that's why, somewhere we need to amend our constitution. There's so many wrongs that are happening in our constitution. We need to amend our constitution, do away with deputy ministers if they cannot step up. And I don't know what is their role. I don't know what is it that they do. They are ceremonial, and maybe reduce provinces into 4, like we did during the apartheid with Transvaal, Orange Free State, Natal, and the Cape Province, and from national to municipality. Because what is the MEC doing? The provinces, what are they doing? These are glorified homelands, TBV states. They were adopted in 1994 to appease people like Mangosuthu, people who killed us, to say, guys, okay, you want federalism, you want KwaZulu, we won't terminate KwaZulu government, we'll create provinces. They added, they made them 9. For what? They made up Limpopo, they changed names. I don't know Limpopo, by changing Kikam, Northern Province, Limpopo, Gauteng, all that nonsense, Northwest. They should have local government and national. Why do you need a middleman? Why do you need a broker in the form of a premier? To do what? To chow money some more. Instead of money filtering straight to where it is needed. They created provinces. They glorified these people who were killing us. Puppet leaders. And there's so many things. What's this thing? Everyone. Our Constitution, chapter 1. It says everyone, the basic document that speaks about the fundamental rights. Healthcare, everyone has got a right. Everyone has got a right to education. Everyone has got a right to a job. Everyone has got a right to adequate housing. Everyone. Who's everyone? This everyone, they've taken from a Freedom Charter. And when the Freedom Charter was written, everyone didn't mean any foreigner and anyone coming from Europe, coming from Bujumbura, coming from Gambia. It was between coloreds, Indians, South Africans, who were white. Because remember, back in the day, South Africans were white. We are not part of South Africa, and blacks. When they said everyone, and with whites, I'm using it as a general term because there are Greeks, there are Afrikaners, there are others who were classified whites. Some colors were classified whites. They meant that they did not anticipate everyone coming from Zimbabwe. 4:10, by 5 o'clock, you've got hospital bed at Nuclear in Rahima Musa. You're lying there. South Africans cannot occupy a labor bed because you are everyone. Zimbabwe's constitution says a citizen. Tinamofigala, our courts, they interpret this thing broadly and say everyone has got the right to housing. A new South African is becoming a foreigner, somebody who cannot lay claim to this land. Shut up, you're also not a South African. We want transformation. Transformation for what? Your father comes from Nairobi. They are killing the South African identity. The demographics are dying. We've got Somalis, Pakistanis. That's why you saw there in PE, taxi guys, fat. They were running like children. Children being chased by foreigners. And you're told, you taxi guys, you touch taxi people. Taxi guys, my foot. They're killing other black people. Don't tell me about taxi owners. They're useless. They're useless. Useless because by now they should be owning a value chain. They should be telling Toyota, we want to be part of the distribution. We want to be part of the manufacturing. That's why I said I'm no longer Zulu, man. If I was Zulu in the first place, I'm no longer Zulu. I don't subscribe to that nonsense because I don't know where it begins. I don't know where it starts. Most people who are Zulus, they did not volunteer to be Zulus. They were forced by a spear because of one man. One man who was probably homosexual because he refused to marry. What type of a man who's got all the kingdom, the money, but refuses to marry, refuses to make a child of his own? What type of a man is that? He was Zulifying everyone to the spear. And yet, he did not respond to the 1820 British settlers who are landing in Natal. We are told about this great Zulu King. He said nothing about the Dutch East India Company. The Afrikaners landed in 1652, long before he was born. He knew about them. What is Shaga's response? In the Cape Colony. What is Shaga's response? They land in 1820. Shaga Zulu died in 1828, 1826, somewhere there. He was powerful at that time. British, they landed. He allowed them, and we are told about this guy, who's a Zulu king. Look at his descendant. Imagine me, bowing to Mrs. Zulu. He's the first king, Futi, to be a stepfather. He's the first king to be a stepfather. He's the first king to be accused of drugs. His family, they accuse him of, inhaling drugs. He's the first king to be accused of being bisexual. His family, they made a press conference. They mentioned these things. I'm subjecting myself to another man's kingdom, surname. And most people who are Zulu, they just took the surname. They have no direct link, no Shaka Senzanga Kon. You're taking somebody's clan names and make them your own. I've got my own clan name that I'm going to create. So most people subject themselves to good dogma. So this country has been ruled by multinationals. Somebody asked me and say, Ike, because I posted one of my friends. This guy died, I think in the early 2000s. He was missing for some time. He was a car thief, a robber. I've been with this guy, for some time. He's the guy who was teaching me how to steal cars. I didn't like stealing cars because I like safety. Mina bengimfundisa ukubhathula. Ukubhathula.
No, what is that?
Ibhathu is carjacking. I was teaching him because I believe in ukuthi ngikubambe ngithi hey where's your gun ngikuthathela isibhamu. So he died sometime. So I posted a picture of this guy. He says, hey, crime doesn't pay. I said, yeah, that's what you're taught at school. South Africa is a crime scene. The people who founded this country were criminals. The kings who ruled before us, they were criminals. They were excluding others from fertile land. That's criminality, the same way as miners are doing today. pushing people away from the chrome mines in Limpopo, Cyril Ramaphosa and Mutsipe. Dutch East India Company coming here, criminalizing Europe. British West India Company criminalizing the youth of Europe, bringing the youth of Europe. Majority of the white people who came in here, they came as forced labor. They also enslaved themselves. Everyone here on earth was once subjected to slave trade, you know. So you telling me about these guys, the crime does not pay. It pays at a higher level. So Ramaphosa, he created load shedding. That's crime. What qualifies Mutsipe to get all these contracts? I'm an IPP, independent power producers. That's crime in the name of BEE. Why not open for everyone? Why can't the state do that? That's crime. They're pushing crime. Some of them, they're not paying taxes. They're not paying for services, but they subject you to the normal laws. Which when you must follow all laws. You follow all laws, you must pay your taxes. Why are South Africans paying taxes? We shouldn't be paying even about income taxes. I mean, right now, I earn 20 rands. It's already taxed. I buy electricity, it's taxed. I'm paying you from the money that was taxed. You're also going to be taxed. Why are you taxed? Because this is 20 rand. You're doing my garden, I'm paying you. Or providing any services, tax go away. I'm buying a car with the same money, it's taxed. I'm going to Pick and Pay or ShopRite to buy, it is taxed. I'm going to pay for license, it is taxed. Today, we must renew the licenses. Back in the days, you had a license forever, you know. We are overtaxed for everything, and the middle class, they tax for things that they don't even use because you're taxed for school, your children don't go to that public school. Hospital, you've got the medical aid. Security, there's security here. I'm paying for security. But they are police. We shouldn't pay for security if they are police. We are being spiked on our roads by illegal foreigners. They know about them. South Africans are shouting land, land. These guys, they come in here, they grab land. That is crime. Some of the judges are mentioned in the CR17 papers, bank statements. They got money. We knew it when we were young with the sober is a judge, but not under this democracy. Some of the judges, they drink like hell. Some of the judges, they are accused of sexual violations. Under this democracy, something that you never had. I've never bumped into a minister, during apartheid. I started drinking during apartheid. I've never bumped into a new minister in a nightclub. I've bumped into ANC ministers in the mid-90s. Rocky Street, Bochwete. Uthi uye toilet mawuthi mosinayi minister. Cela ama-bodyguard. Yabona ukuthi lo muntu lona akana netafula, is not streetwise. How can you urinate with bodyguards around you? He's drunk. They want to be seen. They want to be celebrities. They don't know whether they are celebrities, they are pop icons or ministers, they are pimps. They created the culture of slave queens. Now everyone wants money. Money. Even women will laugh at you with you, this guy. Today it's them, Abosodi. That's why I don't talk about mohos. Because I'm lowering myself unless I have to make a statement. So these guys, they needed, to go. But South Africans, they vote for them, they love them, because a normal South African doesn't care. That's why I ask. I shoot videos now. I'm tired. I've been active all my life. And the people who do me wrong, but are the very same people. I've been active. Wherever I went, student, I was part of the struggle. Unions, arts, created, space, contracts, varsity, everywhere I went. People don't come. Brought people together, who put South Africa first to do. The people ended up pointing a finger at me, say you're xenophobic. I'm the king of xenophobia, according to many people. But now, they can't access hospitals. There's so many things they won't access. South Africans don't care. They care about sundowns and pirates. I'm not saying we shouldn't watch. This value chain benefit abantu bayo. Dlulisa amehlo nje, just, once and move on. Tackle things that are affecting you. South Africans, they're so worried about Zoto abantu. They know more about TV actors. I remember in a train, still a student using a train. People can't even distinguish between a TV character and a reality. There's a certain character was sick on Generation. It's a storyline. I heard a pastor in a train say, "Ngicela simthandazeleni." You are praying for someone who's acting a role at TV, because the masses are like children all the time. That's why the masses will always be governed by a few. From time immemorial, there's never been a moment where the masses have been in control. Maybe Scandinavia is an exception, where a minister is not known. The minister is driving a bicycle, where nobody knows the president. Go Switzerland, go Sweden. Mongabuza, go Finland. Who's the president? Nobody knows. They say you could be in parliament, working with Tablape parliament. Nobody knows. But no, this is parliament. How come? But no, there's the house of legislature, the house of the canteen, what. You don't know. But here, these guys, when they're driving blue lights, sometimes, I wish I could command people who just in fit. These guys, I was driving 2 in the morning. I still had a chamber in Pretoria, Aperture Square. Usually I drive like maybe 2 in the morning, go and work before court. They were occupying 3 lanes, 2 in the morning. 3 lanes, passing immigrant. They bumped me off the road. For what? Where is the Minister of Sport rushing to? What is so important about Minister of Sport rushing blue lights, the Minister of Agriculture? We know that, in fact, it's a slow investment, go agriculture. You plant today, you're going to reap the benefits next year. Why are you rushing as a Minister of Agriculture? Somebody tell me that. And then they say, this guy is angry. Ike is angry. I am angry. And not because I've been cut off. I cut off myself from these guys, because even if I were to die tomorrow, even if I were to die a pauper like Che Guevara, who died with nothing, ngizohamba nginokujabula enhliziyweni yami, knowing ukuthi I was never part of these guys. I've never betrayed. I've got people who died. Some I led them. I commanded them. I told criminals in Pimville ukuthi asipathule kasi. That's why I could walk anywhere, from Eldos to Zola to even Hillbrow. People respect me. I would go anywhere. Criminals respect me. The mothers of my kids, many of them, they would know. Sometimes we'd walk about 12. I'll bump into guys, but him fit. Ike, do you know these guys? Because some of them, I workshop them. I can give you names. Okay? Names like Abu Jack. I used to take them. Unsiyathi mfethu thatha lintwana usifundise mfethu ukuthi asiphathule kasi, abo George, abo Zwide, all these boys. That's why people respected me. Abo Pacho, abo Buddha. Some of them I've beaten them up. I've beaten them up back in the days because we knew each other. Some of them dlale nabi ibhola. Mawuye lokishini. That's why abantu baseSoweto bazenza iClef. No. Townships under PWV era, bo Val Triangle and all of them, bo Israel. You had to play soccer, ukwazi ukugqoka, ukwazi ukujiva, unesicamtho, yabo. Kumele ube na something oduma ngayo, yibo clever lobo, ukwazi ukuphanda, ukwazi ukuthengisa station, you know how to craft without politics. That's how we lived. But now these guys, they killed all of that. Who's selling a station? They've killed the trains. Most people are depressed, they're killing themselves. They're killing themselves over tiny thing. Because a man cannot provide. If you take providence from a man, 10 nice guys, we like to provide. As a man, I like to provide. We feel good, which doesn't. Yeah, my woman is nonsense, but at least this is because of me. She's denying me sex for 6 months, but at least they are happy. My children are happy. We love that. But today, you find a man of 40. If you are 40, you lost an employment. You wake up, you don't know where to go. You've got power. You've got all the weight. These guys, they've killed even education. We knew category 1, category 5, motor degree, further and further. They've made education to look poor, to look cheap. They're writing their car registrations, no degrees. I don't have a degree, but I've made it. But when you are sick, you need a doctor who's got a degree, a school teacher. You insult a school teacher. There's no life without a school teacher. Moral people now, but they become immoral, abafundis. So the phone that I'm using, you have to be educated. The calculations you are using, someone who's educated who came up with that, but you insult educated people because that danda hates. But anyway, yes, in closing, I wouldn't close without saying, as guys, we should also check our mental health. As they say, 1 in 8, is facing depression with women is quite high, and there is gender wars. And I hope that somewhere we'll find, synergy and work together. And don't allow these people to divide us amongst race, because all of us, we are oppressed by these multinationals. Some are oppressed better. I normally say that, ANC, they are security guards. White people, Afrikaners, they were managers of the very same system, a rotten system, a rotten child. Nabo Biligator today, pushing abo open hammers who are oppressing us, linking with other global powers. That's our struggle. The system is the enemy. The enemy is always, a system of the day. Here, you can see, we are fighting our NGOs. Where do they come from? Nobody knows. Who gives them money? Nobody knows. So, and I wish that South Africans can love this country the same way as I love this country. I love South Africa with all of my heart. And I hope South Africa loves me back, because I've never betrayed anyone. I've never taken a bribery. I've never killed anyone. I've never raped anyone. I don't rape. I don't steal. I don't fight people who have nothing against me. Yet I'm not wanted. I'm a good guy. I made mistakes in the past. I've had a couple of people in the past. Maybe good relationship. I'm not easy to get along all the time. But I'm a good guy. As they say that good guys were bad guys. And with all that, follow, share, subscribe, comment. And by the way, I'm not Andrew Tate. I'm not Samuel Kevin. Because most people think that I don't hate women. We need women. We need each other. And I know that a modern woman, disrespect comes standard. And men ended up saying, no, I don't want love. I love to be respected, because they know it's so hard to get love from these people. It's like, I don't hate women. I'm here to correct and balance things the way they're supposed to be, if we can come up together. And I know that we'll never 100% agree on anything. I've heard some others, but they're uniting black people. They had 2 terms. You ask them, what is the unification number? They cannot tell you. What is the unification number for you to say that we are now united? You had 2 terms as a president. You had power. You're uniting your stomach and your family. Yinkuku. Isbaya. Imagine Isbaya, a kraal for your kettles. It's worth millions. Uyazibuza ukuthi sine disco light, ne radio, dlala amapiano. But anyway, peace and out. Gone.
Love, man.